Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to the Mental Wellness Wake Up Show, a weekly podcast where growth minded, creative people come to learn best practices from both spirituality and psychology that create lasting well being. I am your host, mental wellness expert, improvised acting teacher, therapist, and coach, Dawn McMillan. Let's get to it. Hello, hello. I am so glad you are here. And if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. It is a delight to have you here, and you are in excellent company. This community is made up of truly lovely, amazing, wonderful people. So even if you don't know them in person, know that there are people all around the world, literally, who are sharing this moment with you as we all strive towards being our favorite version of ourselves. So welcome. And to all my returning listeners, here's a virtual hug for you. Thank you for being here. Your time is precious and you're spending it with me, and I am truly honored. So, we're in our Enneagram series, which, if you're joining us just now, you don't have to listen to the other ones, but I highly recommend that you do. The Enneagram is a 9-pointed wisdom system, which is most commonly used as a personality typing. We started in the triad at the top of the circle, 8, 9s, and 1s. And 8, 9s, and 1s are characterized by their relationship to anger, to managing their anger. So today we are jumping into our Enneagram 1s. Woohoo! So I will be shuffling some papers around. So just bear with me if you would be so kind, so that I can pull from a couple of different sources. So, who are our Enneagram 1s? The first thing you have to say about an Enneagram 1 is that every team needs one. Pun intended. Every team needs an Enneagram 1. I will tell you why. Here's the names that are used to describe the Enneagram 1: the reformer, the teacher, the activist, the crusader, the moralist, the perfectionist, the organizer. So 1s are at their best. When they are at their best, they are ethical, reliable, productive, wise, idealistic, fair, honest, orderly, and self-disciplined. Mwah! Yes! Yes! We want those 1s around us. They keep us on our toes. However, when a 1 is under stress, when they're unevolved, when they have their unresolved trauma, at their worst, 1s can be judgmental, inflexible, dogmatic, obsessive compulsive, critical of others, overly serious, controlling, anxious, jealous. So 1s have so many beautiful gifts to offer. The trouble that 1s have, for the most part, is that ability to strive for perfection, to see how things could be, sometimes becomes a very blunt instrument, a very unwieldy weapon that they use against themselves and others. So 1s always have to strike this wonderful balance, this tricky balance of looking for the ideal, for working towards getting things right without beating themselves up when they can't make that level of perfection, or becoming a harasser of others for not living up to their ideals. So for 1s, we're going to be going back and forth between Riso Hudson and Baron Wageli systems. Those are different authors of different Enneagram explorations. So in the Riso Hudson, they identify the basic fear of an Enneagram 1 is of being bad, defective, evil, corrupt. That's their basic fear, of being bad, not necessarily only doing bad, but being bad. Their basic desire to be good, virtuous, in balance, and to have integrity. So the message that plays in their minds, their superego message is going to be, you are good or okay if you do what is right. So when you think about some ones that you might know, you're going to appreciate that they're the ones who just keep going until the job is done. They're the ones who organize the shopping list by geography so that when you're out running errands, you do it in the cleanest, most efficient way possible. Enneagram ones really are essential to anyone's team. And as I mentioned before, the challenge that they struggle with is just using that intellect, that wisdom, that discernment against themselves and others. So let's talk about what the 9 levels that the Enneagram 1 can go through. Before we do that, let's talk about their relationship to anger. So we divided the Enneagram up for this high level bird's eye view of the Enneagram into 3 groups of 3. There are many more ways to divide the Enneagram up, but we're doing the initial 3 groups of 3. So 8, 9s, and 1s are considered the gut group, the body group, the people who operate a lot on instinct and just what they know in their bones, and are often characterized by their relationship to anger. Whereas Enneagram 8s will often act out their anger. They'll express it. If an Enneagram 8 is upset with you, you will know it. Enneagram 9s, their relationship to anger is to suppress it. They're working very hard at all times to keep the peace inside and outside. So they're the can't we all just get along people. So their relationship to anger is to just bottle it up unless and until you cross a line with them. And then you will see a version of them that you probably will never want to see again. And then with our Enneagram 1s, they are using that anger as fuel. They use it as fuel. It's that the fire that keeps them on that perfectionist track, the fire that keeps them going to get it right. And if you're suspecting that there are a lot of Enneagram 1 entrepreneurs, you would be correct. So let's talk about unhealthy versions or levels of being an Enneagram 1. So at level 9 being the low, our beautiful Enneagram 1s can be condemnatory and punitive. The realization that they have lost control of themselves and are doing the very things they cannot tolerate in others is too much for unhealthy ones. They try to rid themselves of the apparent cause of their obsessions in themselves, others, or the environment, possibly resulting in self-mutilation, murder, or suicide. Okay, that's really extreme, but we can think about this condemnation as being that level of perfectionism, that fire of anger turned deeply inwards, and when that becomes intolerable, turned outwards. So at level 8, an unhealthy Enneagram 1 is going to be obsessive and contradictory. Ariso Hudson says, ones are so desperate to defend themselves from their irrational desires and impulses that they become obsessed with the very parts of themselves they want to control. They begin to act out all of their repressed desires while publicly continuing to condemn them. They cannot stop themselves. So this, if you're hearing that contradictory, that hypocrisy, these are the people who talk about those good for nothing so-and-sos, but secretly they're doing the exact same behavior. And you can understand how this would be very self-tormenting, very painful for the Enneagram 1s, and also very painful for the people around them as they speak and act out of condemnation. Level 7, self-righteous, inflexible. Ones fear that their ideals may actually be wrong, which may be true. To save their self-image, they attempt to justify themselves and silence criticism. They are closed-minded and allow no compromises or negotiations in their positions. They are bitter, misanthropic, and highly self-righteous. I am biting my tongue right now because I want to make a highly controversial statement, which I'm going to avoid, but insert political ideology here. So when people are being self-righteous and inflexible, they're so convinced, uh, they so desperately want to be right, and they're so afraid that they are wrong, that they get really kind of bitter and really self-righteous, and they judge other people. Like, if you could see my face right now, I'm just making this little pinched face. These are like the pinch faces of the world who always look like they just bit on a bitter lemon. So that's when ones are being really unhealthy. And if you're sitting here and you're thinking like, well, screw them, if you're not a one, please know that in my opinion, our Enneagram 1 friends are often the ones who suffer the most from their own way of being, if that makes any sense. That beautiful gift of knowing that things can be beautiful and good and correct and right and full of that essence of wonderfulness, knowing that and not being able to achieve that can be a source of pain for them. So let's not judge our unhealthy ones too harshly, because they are really suffering themselves. Okay, moving on. Average ones, 4, 5, and 6 levels. Level 6, judgmental, critical. Ones are afraid that others will mess up the order and balance that they have achieved, and they are angry that others do not take their ideals as seriously. They react by reproaching and correcting others for not living up to their own standards. They are perfectionistic, opinionated, sarcastic. Moving up, level 5, self-controlled, orderly. Ones worry that others will condemn them for any deviation from their ideals. Having argued their points of view, ones are now obliged to live up to it at all times. So they try to rigorously organize themselves and their world. They're punctual and methodical, but also irritable and tense. So that's at level 5. Level 4, right here in the middle. Enneagram 1s present as obligated and striving. Ones begin to fear that others are indifferent to their principles, so they want to convince others of the rightness of their viewpoint. They become serious and driven, debating others and remedying problems while evaluating their world and pointing out what is wrong with things. So you can start to hear, as we're moving up this level of emotional maturity and emotional health, the gift that having the Enneagram 1s have to offer others, because they are finding the problems. They're able to see the flaws in the system, and they are eager to be a part of what makes it better. Okay, level 3. So we're moving into healthy levels, emotional levels for Enneagram 1s. And what we're talking about, these levels, these are not absolute. Depending on how stressed you are and what circumstances of life you are in, you're going to go up and down. It's not like you achieve healthy level one, and that's it. You're fixed for life, right? We're all everything. We're all multitudinous. And so sometimes when we're super under stress, we can act like a less enlightened version of ourselves. And then sometimes when we're well-resourced, we are the highest and best. Okay. Level 3, principled, responsible. Ones reinforce their self-image by trying to live their lives in accordance with their consciences and with reason. They are highly ethical and self-disciplined and possess a strong sense of purpose and conviction. Truthful and articulate, they teach by example, putting aside personal desires for the greater good. Putting aside personal desires for the greater good. These are the people who will sacrifice themselves for duty because it is the right thing to do. Level 2, evaluating reasonable. Ones focus on the dictates of their superegos. For those of you not familiar with Freudian language, we have the superego, the ego, and the id. The superego being your conscience, rules, regulations, the ego being your personality, and the id being your urges and drives. So one focuses on the dictates of their superegos, consciences, to guide them in life and defend them from the disordered parts of themselves. Their self-image is, I am sensible, moderate, and objective. And then level 1, accepting, wise. Ones let go of the belief that they are in a position to judge anything objectively and are able to approach life without emotionally reacting to it. They also paradoxically achieve their basic desire to have integrity and be good. As a result of their self-actualization, they become wise, discerning, accepting, hopeful, and often noble. When I think about this person, this level 1, there's actually a specific person that I have in mind, and it's Richard Rohr, who is a contemplative Catholic teacher. I don't know him personally, so I'm going on his public persona. But there is this sense of this emotional maturity, this sense of acceptance, this sense of longing for and striving towards what is good and kind and just without being emotionally reactive. It's really quite noble. When you think of someone who's noble, this might be the person, the type of person that you're thinking of. So our whole point in exploring this Enneagram isn't necessarily to identify ourselves or others. Sidebar, be careful about identifying others. You can't always know. You don't know what people's hidden lives are like. You only know how they present to you. But the reason why we're going through this is to discover what we can learn from all of the Enneagram types, because we all are all of them. We all have different aspects of these personality types within us. So when you hear that a 1 is ethical, reliable, productive, wise, idealistic, fair, honest, orderly, self-disciplined, let us look to our own lives and say, how can I get in touch with that inner Enneagram 1? How can I lean into my self-discipline in service of that which is good for myself and others? How can I lightly hold the ideal while accepting what is? How can I use my discernment and hold on to my hopefulness? So yeah, now you know I said every group needs an Enneagram 1, because they're kind of the bomb. So Enneagram 1s, if you are an Enneagram 1, your advice is to lighten up a little bit, go have some fun. In the language of the Enneagram, it's going to be about being more like a 7, to lean into integrating your Enneagram 7. But Dawn, we haven't covered the Enneagram 7 yet. I know, we'll get there. But you want to find playfulness. So if you are an Enneagram 1, you want to find your playfulness. You want to lighten up a little bit. You want to do something silly, like, I don't know, improv or something. Because your commitment to what is good and right and fair and just can make you a little dour. It can really bring you down. And it can set that inner critic voice of yours on overdrive. So you want to get that little voice to pipe down a little bit. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure you have fun as a daily nutrient. So that's our Enneagram 1s. Amazing, right? So one of the things I love about the Enneagram is it helps me to appreciate the different personality types I encounter. Like ideally, you would love an organization that had at least one of each of these types that we're going over, because of the gifts that they bring. You know, a group of only Enneagram 9s would get nothing done. They'd be too busy nourishing their creature comforts and trying to keep peace with everyone. A group of only Enneagram 8s would be too argumentative as they were standing up for their principles. If it was all just Enneagram 1s, they might get paralyzed by their inner critics and not be able to accept others' points of view. So we want to integrate all of these into ourselves. So I invite you this week to 1, if you know an Enneagram 1, be grateful and let them lean into their strengths. Fair, honest, orderly, self-disciplined. Let them lean into their strengths, right? You want an Enneagram 1 as your workout partner. for example, or your study partner. And then for ourselves, just meditate on, can I get in touch? Can I get in touch with my Enneagram 1 characteristics and apply them in my life when that is the gift that would be most helpful? All right. So I'm just going to check my notes here and see if there's anything else that I want to touch on. Shooby-doo-wah, shooby-doo-wah. Oh, here's a note from Carl Rogers, or a quote rather. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Oh, here's another good one. Marcus Borg. Wisdom is not just about moral behavior, but about the center, the place from which moral perception and moral behavior flow. I love that. My hypothesis is that what we are all trying to do with this Enneagram. So if you haven't looked up the diagram yet, Google Enneagram, Enneagram, and it's a circle with all these points around the circumference, around the periphery. It is my belief that the Enneagram wisdom system is guiding us to be towards that center, the place from which moral perception and moral behavior flow, to be all of the personality types and able to fluidly move amongst them as the situation dictates. All right. It's a little long. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. That's how the podcast grows. And my friends, we are growing. How exciting is that? And I wish you a week of fairness, equanimity, and goodness. And you know why? Because you deserve it. You really do. You, beloved friend, are whole, perfect, and complete just the way you are. And you are allowed to change if you so choose. And you are allowed to not. And you are worthy and deserving of a life so gorgeous that it transcends even your own imagination. Until next time. I am so honored that you share time with me. If you've listened this far, then something here was of value to you. Would you please be a friend of the podcast and share it with at least one other person? The podcast is available on most platforms, including YouTube, and I need your help to get the word out. So please like, subscribe, and share, and a 5-star review on iTunes would be chef's kiss. Thank you so much. See you next time.